It's the return of Biz back with us today on Locked On Hawkeyes. We talk with Jace about everything going on with Iowa football. Are we looking at the same old situation? Will anything really change under Kirk Ferentz? We'll break it down today. Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon. That's Biz. And this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts, and you can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, hit the subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Biz, good to see you. It was a week ago, off a bye week, Ohio State hanging around. We've told the story all week long here on Locked On Hawkeyes. But in the end, kind of more of the same. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Trent, because since that game, my Mets have had a phenomenal couple weeks. So yeah. I've bounced back. I'm glad we're doing this on Friday and not on Sunday or Monday. Or I probably would have had a different attitude. But I'm doing well. The Hawkeyes, not so much.
So start right there. And it's something that I haven't tackled very much this week, but when you sent it to me, you said kind of same old crap, right? And it just kind of triggered something in my mind where, yes, we see the offense looking different. We see Tim Lester doing different things, but ultimately there isn't a ton different. We're not talking about an offense that's stretching the field. We're seeing the gap between Ohio State and the elites of college football in Iowa just continuing to grow. And it kind of grows. It can go one of two ways. Happy about your lot in life. Look, Iowa football is still very successful. Happy for what it is, because you look at many other programs and they would die for what Iowa football is, or the new reality that this gap likely isn't going to change anytime soon unless something changes financially with Iowa football. So a lot of directions to go. Take it where you want, Biz.
Yeah, the way I think I described it to you, and I apologize because this is a family podcast, Trent, but same shit, different year. It's just, at some point, apathy for these types of games set in because you just kind of know in advance what's going to happen. And, shame on me and for thinking that it was going to be different. And then what you saw last Saturday was the same thing we've seen for 3 straight years against good teams now. You saw the standard bad quarterback play. You saw an inconsistent offensive line that third quarter looked god-awful. You saw complete lack of playmakers, just inability, like you said, to stretch the field. But then the most frustrating thing for me is you just saw a coaching staff that in these types of games, I don't know what you want to say, there's coaches scared or coaches not to lose, however you want to put it. And the Iowa State second half and the Ohio State first half are just perfect examples of how to lose games. The Iowa State second half, we're so reliant on defense and special teams that we just basically say we're going to count on our defense and special teams to bail us out in these situations. The second half of the Iowa State game, we basically said, look, we're just going to we don't think you can beat us offensively. We don't think you can get up with 13, nothing's good enough. And we saw what happened. And same thing with Ohio State, the first half, we were right in there. We did exactly what I asked. I think we were going to go into Ohio State and win. Nobody did. But I thought we could be competitive in this game. And for the first half, we were competitive. And we did all right offensively. We had our opportunities. But when the opportunities arose, our coaching staff, for lack of a better term, chickened out. You only get so many opportunities against Ohio State. And you're not going to beat Ohio State with 13 points or 10 points or anything like that. So the moment we trotted out the kicker to kick a 50-yard field goal, I was like, well, this is over. We're not going to win with field goals. It's 4th and 3 at their 33. Go for it. And then you get the ball at the 50-yard line, and you have the debacle with the fake punt, timeout, punt, whatever it was. Last year, when you have the best punter on earth, that might not be a bad idea because Tory Taylor puts him inside the 5. This year, what do you see against the Iowa State game? When we needed a clutch punt down the stretch, he punts it to the 22. They go down and score. He puts that inside the 10. We win that game. Same thing here. We choose to punt. He shanks a punt. It goes 20 yards. And, you're relying on good special teams, which we don't have this year, and you're relying on a defense to bail you out, which this defense has shown through 5 games is good, but it's not elite. It's a very good defense, but it's not an elite defense. I mean, they're very good. Phil Parker's defenses are always going to be very good, but they're not the type of defense that's going to win us 7-3 games this year. I mean, and it's just, like I said, same shit, different year. I could go on and on. It's frustrating because, that first half, we had an opportunity to be in that ball game. There's no reason that game couldn't have been a 7-7 game at the half. If we take some chances, I would much rather see us take some chances and get blown out than do what we did on Saturday, which is play not to lose, and then you get blown out anyway.
So one thing I mentioned this week is the old formula for Kirk Ferentz. Hang around, make a play. It's broken. It's broken for a couple of reasons. A, these top-level teams are even better than they've been in the past. I mean, you look at this loaded Ohio State roster. You look at Michigan. They just won a national championship. These teams are a little bit different. I think their highest upside is even higher than it was before in some of these games. And on top of it, you mentioned playmakers and making plays and those kind of things. Go back to those games and look at how they were able to beat those teams. Yes, it was elite defense. Yes, it was good special teams. But you also had playmakers. You had Akram Wadley that could beat Michigan and do those kind of things. The 55-24, that is a great anomaly. That was one of one. Everything else is, over the last 15 years, hanging around. But then it got making the
team had they had Fant, they had Hawkinson. Right. That team had talent.
Right.
That team, we couldn't score 55 points if we played Ohio State for 16 quarters right now.
Right, yeah. That gap continues to grow, but the unwillingness to change, the inability to see that, maybe that's even more frustrating. You get it. As people get older, they become more conservative. They believe in their values and their ideas even more, be it a football coach or any other walk of life. That's just the reality of the situation. But Kirk Ferentz is a smart football guy. How can he not see that this doesn't work anymore? If we have, what did it get up to, 127-0 in those games against ranked teams here recently? It's unbelievable to me that Coach Ferentz can't see that.
Well, and the flip side of that, Trent, is I think good teams, the book is out on how to beat Iowa. If you're a really good team, what you've seen, basically going back to that Michigan game 3 years ago, is just stay patient. I mean, all you got to do, we're going to keep everything in front of us, but if you've got the talent that the Michigans or Tennessees or Ohio States have, you can nickel and dime us to death. And if you don't shoot yourself in the foot, if you don't commit penalties, if you don't turn the ball over, you're going to beat us. And you're going to beat us slowly, methodically. Ohio State couldn't have been any more conservative that first half. They were going to not shoot themselves in the foot. And then once they got up 14-0, they opened the playbook up and got a little more aggressive. But, that's how Michigan did it. That's even how Tennessee did it last year. It's just be patient, be methodical, take your 14, 15 play drive. Because like I said, we're a good defense, but we're not an elite defense right now. And that's with the NIL era, we're probably never going to have a truly elite defense again. We're always going to be schemed well. We're always going to have, we're always going to play smart football on defense, but we're never going to have absolute elite talent. And so I just think the book's out right now where good teams now understand how to beat us, because if they don't beat themselves, we're not going to win.
Mm-hmm. That's taking it a step further from that. Something I've been saying now going back since last year is you mentioned the formula, and the formula also, I think a part of it is teams taking what they can. And if you're just more talented, eventually you're going to do it, but also understanding how bad this Iowa offense has become. They're not going to be able to beat you. Like you said, don't make those mistakes and if it turns out we have to punt the football, that's fine. Don't make the big mistake. And I think you're seeing teams become less aggressive, do less of those things that Iowa can get the scoop and score, can get the pick six, can get that big turnover, because they know that Iowa offense is doing absolutely nothing. So it's pretty simple, right? You need to get a playmaker at quarterback. You need to get more playmakers, and easier said than done. Caleb Johnson is a fine running back. They have that, but it comes down to quarterback. There is no CJ Beathard walking through that door. There's not even a Nate Stanley in that locker room right now. And because of that, I just think we're going to see more of the same when we take on these top-level teams.
Well, fortunately, Trent, let's turn the page, I guess. The good news is we don't have to play any of those top teams the rest of the year.
Yep.
We've got an opportunity here, and we'll talk about that coming up. But, I don't want to be all doom and gloom because I still think this team, there's been some positives to this team. I still am a big fan of Tim Lester. I think he is a significant upgrade over last year. And I think this team has a chance to still make this a decent year. But it's been, up to this point, it's, the Iowa State game, the first half of the Minnesota game, the second quarter of the Minnesota game. I mean, there's been a lot of frustration. We need to come out and it'd be really fun to see a clean, well-played 4 quarters of football. We just haven't seen that yet this year. And that's a recipe for losses. And it's going to continue to be a recipe for losses if we don't clean it up.
No doubt. Well, we'll continue here. We'll talk a little bit about the Washington Huskies. We'll take a look at them. And Stat Boy makes his triumphant return. We'll do that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast is brought to you by ZBiotics. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Look, Biz and I, we like to have a good cocktail, like to have a good time before a football game, and this is something that can help you out. I've had pre-alcohol drinks before, and you can notice the difference the next day, even after a night out. Step 1, this is how you use it. Drink pre-alcohol. For best results, take pre-alcohol, your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. And step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with the big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Having that information ready to go is huge. As what you're seeing actually playing out on the field, you got all the information right there with you on FanDuel. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Taking a look at the Hawkeyes Huskies this weekend, Iowa remains a 2.5-point favorite in this one. Over-under sitting at 41, and a whole host of props available for you on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Once again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Trent and Biz back with you once again here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. All right, Biz.
That was very educational, Trent. I got to go get me some ZBiotics.
Yes, you do. I think both of us definitely need a little bit
or
of
20 years ago, I probably should have went and got myself some ZBiotics. I don't know if I need it anymore.
Well, let's get into Stat Boy. You made the call to the bat signal. You sent it out. We need a little information. So what did Stat Boy unearth this week?
Well, as you know, we're playing a new team, and when this type of new info comes up, and you need some good nuggets to share with the masses, who do you go to, Trent?
It's Stat Boy. There's one person.
Yeah, and the old backed by popular demand. I think this was actually backed by singular request, wasn't it? Didn't you have one person request Stat Boy? So.
Oh, there's been a few more. Yeah, social media. I get people. Is Stat Boy still around? What's going on? Did you guys get a fight?
Stat Boy dead? The answer to that is no. He's alive and kicking. So
yes,
and he's back. So yeah. So return to the Stat Boy. As always, Trent, when we have some new info to provide, we got to hop in the old time machine and go back and let's talk about the legendary Iowa-Washington rivalry. So in the spirit of Major League Baseball playoffs and how amazing the playoffs have been so far, this will be the take it all Game 7 of the Iowa-Washington rivalry.
Right.
They played 6 times in the past. Washington has won 3, we've won 3. So Saturday is winner take all, game 7. So let's talk about the 6 games in the past. I don't know if you've seen, there's been a couple articles out this week, but game 1 was way back in 1937. It was famous for, it was the very first varsity game ever played by who?
Niall Kinnick.
Niall Kinnick, exactly. So other than being famous for that, not much to report good from the Hawkeye side. Lost 14-0. Same old Iowa offense in that game. We had less than 100 yards, 4 for 14, 3 interceptions. So some things never change.
Yeah.
But Statboy did find, he found an old newspaper. And the great thing about newspapers back in 1937, they didn't take the effort to actually write an article. They just put a straight up play-by-play in the paper.
Oh, wow.
Every single play. So we won't bore everybody with the play-by-play, but I will. The very first play of the game was indicative of how bad Iowa must have been as a team, because here's the description of play 1. Iowa won the toss and chose to defend the east end zone. Captain Homer Harris, which is a great 1937 name.
Yeah, it is.
Captain Homer Harris kicked off to the 29-yard line.
Ooh.
And then the description ends with, it was a poor kick. That's it. So just a little editorial there at the end. It was a poor kick by Homer. So and things went downhill from there. They lose 14-0. So Washington wins game 1. We then take a 26-year hiatus and decide in 1963 to head back out to Seattle and play again.
The return
a more
trip.
favorable result for the Hawks this time. We win 17-7 against a good Washington team. First touchdown of the game was scored by Paul Krause, who later went on to build a fine family plaza, as we'd all know, the lovely Krause family plaza. So once again, offense not great. 6 for 19 passing. Also, special teams were not as good back then either. We punted 8 times for a 26-yard average. Ooh. So not good. That team went on to go 3-2. So. Safe to say that'll never happen again. I believe we were 6-4-3 when you were like 88 or whatever.
Yep.
But 3-3-2 is not easy to do. But we pulled it off in 1963. My question for you in that game, Trent, you should know this. Who was the Iowa football coach in 1963?
It was after. Was it Jerry Burns?
It was Jerry Burns. Yep, good job.
After Evie.
The next year, this is a home and home series. So we get Washington for the first time ever in Kinnick in 1964. Washington's ranked number 10, and we whoop them 28-18. So things are looking up for Jerry Burns at that point. We start the year 3-0, and then the wheels fall off.
Oh no!
We go 3-6, and that is literally the beginning of the end for Iowa football. From starting 3-0 in 1964 to the time that Hayden arrives in 1980. You want to know an amazing stat, Trent?
What do you got?
We were never above 500.
Yeah. I heard about, 17 consecutive years?
Never.
17 consecutive years without a winning season.
And I know it didn't not a winning start.
Yeah.
We played some really good teams to start the years back then. This was not, nowadays you get, your Illinois State and things to start. We didn't have those starts back then. So, that was the beginning of the end. Jerry Burns lasted a couple more years. He got canned. Then we went through a laughable period of bad coaching. So that win was the high point of the 60s, basically, for Iowa. We beat number 10 Washington, and then the wheels fell off. So we're up 2-1 now. The next 2 games, both neutral site games, both Rose Bowls, both not good. So first Rose Bowl, 1982 Rose Bowl. This is kind of the opposite end of where we were in 1964. Hayden has now made us into a respectable team again. We go to that Rose Bowl. What happens?
28-0.
28-0. Who was the freshman star for Washington? You remember his name?
Freshman star, Washington. I don't.
If the name doesn't pop up right away, you're not going to remember it. Freshman running back Jacques Robinson.
Oh no, yeah, no.
I was I think 6 at the time, so I slightly remember. I remember getting whooped in that game. That name Jacques Robinson is stuck in my head forever because he was a freshman, and I remember thinking he was going to be the next amazing running back. He was not. But looking at the stat boy found some paper info on this one, and Hayden was never one to mince words on how things went. So Hayden's quotes on how the game went, that was a good old-fashioned rump kicking. It was very embarrassing. So he didn't mince words about how bad the Hawks played that day. Here's your quiz question for that game. Who was the Iowa starting quarterback in that Rose Bowl?
In the Rose Bowl, was it Pulaski?
No. I'll give you a hint. His son.
Gordy.
There you go. Good old Gordy Bohannon started. He got pulled for Pete Gales halfway through the game.
Pete Gales.
Neither Gordy or Pete had much success. Offense was, again, some things never change. Offense was inept. So that evens it up at 2-2. 9 years later, same location, 1991 Rose Bowl. Mm-hmm. Once again, the Hawks, unfortunately, lay an egg in the Rose Bowl. 46-34 Washington. That score really isn't indicative of how bad the game was for the Hawks. Down 33-7. First half was a comedy of errors. Had a blocked punt return for a touchdown. 5 turnovers. Just not good football. But that Iowa team will always be near and dear to my heart. That was back, I was 14 years old. That was one of the first Iowa teams I really remember truly, absolutely loving. Matt Rogers, the running back duo of
91 had been Mike Saunders.
He was there, but he was not the duo. They had two running backs that both ran for over 800 yards that year. One's probably my favorite Iowa running back of all time.
Owen Gill? No.
Good Lord, Trent, this is embarrassing.
What do you got?
You should know these two.
I know.
Nick Bell and Tony Stewart.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Tony Stewart I should have got for sure. And
Nick Bell and Tony Stewart.
I told you I'm not at the top of my game. I've had a trying morning this morning.
Our good friend Lloyd really loved Nick Bell.
I bet.
He loved Nick Bell so much that when Nick Bell left, the next 43 was Cliff King, and he was a big Cliff King fan also. So I realized that Cliff King was not Nick Bell. Debacle of a game. But your quiz question from that game: Washington played 2 quarterbacks in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Name them.
Mark Brunell.
Mark Brunell was the starter. He played most of the game. His backup had one of the better names in the 1990s football, and he ended up being a good quarterback as well.
Oh boy, I got nothing on that one.
Billy Joe Hobert.
Oh, nice.
Billy Joe Hobert. That's a great name, and
yes,
he ended up being a decent quarterback as well. So the Hawks are down 3-2. We even it up in the legendary 1995 Sun Bowl. So
yes.
Sun Bowl win, 38-18. This was Washington's turn to implode. They were awful. 4 turnovers, punt snap out the back of the end zone. How awful were they? Here's the start of the game. I found if you Google Iowa 1995 Sun Bowl, you can actually find the Sun Bowl has a very detailed, 15-page summary of the game that includes a play-by-play. And the play-by-play shows the game started with a 3-and-out by Iowa. Washington then fumbles the punt return. We recover. Next play, 58-yard touchdown by Cedric Shaw. Washington gets the ball. First play, fumbles. We get a field goal. Iowa kicks off. Washington fumbles again. So I'm not sure Washington was ready to play that game. So we cruise to a 38-6 lead. They put up a couple meaningless touchdowns. But here's your quiz question for this one, Trent. Iowa had 2 kickers combined for 5 field goals in that game.
Ooh.
Who were the 2 kickers?
Brian Hurley.
Brian Hurley was the long kicker. He kicked
Zach Brown.
47, 49, 50. And the short kicker was?
The little walk-on, Zach Brommer.
Rudy. Good old Rudy. 33 and 34-yard field goals. So, a quality day for Iowa field goal kicking. 5 field goals by 2 different kickers. So, there it is. There's your stat boy summary. We're tied 3-3. So, that really cranks up the importance. When you get a game 7 in Kinnick, you got to put them away. So game 7 on Saturday. Let's finish this series.
Stat Boy, very drunkenly one night back in college, he came up to me before it was the Yankees Diamondbacks game 7. And he said, TC, we just got to sit down. We got to watch every pitch. Game 7, pure baseball. And for the rest of the night, he just come up to me and repeat pure baseball. So what I'm thinking here, we're getting pure football. That's going to be game 7 tomorrow in Kinnick Stadium.
I will say for the first time in a decade, I watched from pitch one to the end of the game a couple times for playoff games. There's been some fun playoffs and fun to have the Mets involved. The pitch clock is the greatest invention of all time. It makes baseball watchable again. I mean, there's games, there's just a speed to the big games that were not there. You're never going to have another Yankees Red Sox 4.5 hour playoff debacle. So, yeah. So pure baseball. Let's see some pure football on Saturday.
Pure football. We'll finish up here on the other side. We'll get our picks of the week as we continue. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. I'm Trent. He's Biz, and it is time to make some picks. And you want to gloat a little bit more about your Mets, Biz?
I do. Yeah, it's as a Mets fan, I've spent 47 years assuming the worst, and it's been really fun to have a lot of positive things happen the last 2 weeks. They have found ways to win games in some really dramatic fashion, and obviously that happened back in 1986, but since 1986, it's happened very, very few times. So, at this point, I don't think they're a championship team. I don't think they can win the World Series, but at this point, they're playing with house money. You knock off, you have a dramatic win against the Braves. You knock off the Phillies. You've done everything you can at this point. Let's hope the magic continues, but if it doesn't, it's been a hell of a run. And as a Mets fan, that only happens once every decade at most. So I've enjoyed it.
So I see Steve Cohen partying with the fans, having a great time. He's invested in the team. A lot of those investments outside of Lindor have not exactly gone swimmingly, but he cares. And as a Twins fan, and the news yesterday that the Pohlads are going to be selling the team, I hope the Twins can get their Steve Cohen, a guy that's actually going to invest in the team. That would be nice.
Well, and I know everybody talks about Steve Cohen being a multi-billionaire, which he is. But what I've loved about Steve Cohen is, as a Mets fan, it's sickened me for years how they've tried to keep up with the Yankees and do these quick fixes and, buy the Bobby Bonillas of the world and people like that. Cohen hasn't done that. Has he made some decisions that haven't worked? Yeah, but he hasn't, I was very happy this year that they didn't do anything dumb and go trade away their future to try to win this year. They made a couple smart moves and brought in a couple relievers and things like that, but they're playing for the long term. I mean, this is obvious. Honestly, this is a year, maybe even 2 years ahead of schedule. I mean, I think they were looking at 2025, 2026 as the years. I don't think they're going to sign Pete Alonso, and that is fine with me. I think the Mets absolutely got the best out of Pete Alonso. I don't see Pete Alonso getting better the next few years. So if they sign him, it's more as a sentimental pick than anything. But I don't think they'll sign him, and I think they'll continue to focus on young development, and it's refreshing to see that. So yes, he's got the money, but he's also got the brains to realize that you can't just go buy a baseball team. You've got to develop a team, and they've done that. So it's been 20 years since that's happened, and it's been fun to see the Mets actually develop and have a farm system and do things the right way.
All right, let's wrap up here, Biz, with our pick of the week presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. And I don't remember what we even did in our first week of doing this. Do you remember?
We just randomly picked the Hawks game was all. And
yeah,
I think it was at Minnesota, and I think I picked Iowa to win, and you picked the Gophers. So
I did, yeah. You're ahead. You got the lead. All right. Iowa currently a 2.5-point favorite against Washington. Maybe it's old habits die hard, but I believe that this Iowa team Kirk Ferentz's greatest quality is what he does in this situation. Is kind of back against the wall. Nobody believes in us. And because of that, I'll lay it here and I'll take the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, this is an easy one. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy that I was going to win, but it's easy to, based on past performance, this is easy to bet on the Hawks. I mean, like you just said, as much as Kirk Ferentz frustrates you, nobody does better in these types of games. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at past performance and you just look at it, big picture of it, you got to bet Iowa here. We've always done well in these situations, and I think we'll do well again. So give me the Hawks.
I had one game that I had circled this week. Maybe you can help me out. It seems like the trap of all traps. Cal coming off that devastating loss, collapsing late against Miami, now has to go back across the country to Pittsburgh, who's undefeated, and Pitt, 5-0, is only laying a field goal. Something seems way, way off with this one. I thought
So you're
Pitt would be
taking Cal, right?
Well, I mean, it kind of tells you, right? Because
you got to take Cal, I think, Trent.
I can't wrap my mind around how this is only a 3-point spread. That was the most baffling line of the week to me.
So what are you picking?
Give me Cal. You know how I bet. I mean,
you got to take Cal.
I know. It just that one was probably the most difficult to wrap my mind around. You got anything circled this week?
Well, for that game, I think Cal's that team this year that every game is going to be chaos. I think every game's going to come down to that minute. So if they get, my pick, Trent, is simple. Give me Iowa State. And I'm doing it for two reasons. One, because I think Iowa State's going to win. But second, I really, really hope this is the kiss of death for Iowa State. Because you look at that Iowa State cycle, that schedule, if they win this week, they're going to be 10-0. Yeah. And this has a feel, and I hate to say this, and it makes me sick to even talk about this, but this has the same feel as Iowa's 2015 season. Where do I think Iowa State's a great team? No. But they have a favorable schedule, and they're taking advantage of that favorable schedule, and they're getting more confidence as the year goes on. You remember that 2015 year, we went to Wisconsin, pulled out an ugly victory. Same thing Iowa State did at Iowa. Went to Iowa, pulled out an ugly victory. And then midway through the year, do you remember Iowa went to Northwestern? Surging Northwestern that was actually ranked at the time. And I think we were 6-0 at the time. I remember everybody kind of thinking, boy, this is kind of where the luck runs out. And we went there and stomped them. Yeah. And from that point on, we just kind of got that confidence, and it was kind of a season of destiny, and we went 12-0. This feels really similar for Iowa State. God, I hope it's not. It makes me sick. But you watch the Big 12. The Big 12's awful. Yeah. Last week, Baylor, got up 14-3, and then just decided, let's find every possible way we can to lose this game. The teams are so ridiculously undisciplined. Houston was like watching an NAIA team. And Matt Campbell is smart enough. Houston is a perfect example. He did to Houston what Ohio State does to Iowa, which is basically say, we'll just wait. We'll wait out. Eventually, you'll screw up, and we're a better team than you. And they did against Houston. He knew it. The score's 3-0 in the middle of the third quarter, but they were never any risk of losing that game because Campbell's a smart coach, and he knows that these teams will make stupid mistakes. And West Virginia is a perfect example of that. Yeah. They'll shoot themselves in the foot. So I think Iowa State goes in and stomps them. I think they win by double digits, and I hope everything I just said is wrong. So
me too.
I hope they go shit the bed and they lose, and I can laugh and say I was the kiss of death. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to go there and win big. I think Iowa State's. I don't want to sound like sour grapes. I said the Big 12 is awful, but Iowa State's good, and they're good, and they're getting better. They're building confidence. And are they 12-0 good? I don't think so. But looking at that schedule, they can be 12-0 good. They got to beat the teams in front of them, and they've done it so far. And I think they go into Morgantown and just dominate that game. I think they're a significantly better team and way more disciplined than West Virginia. Yeah,
that West Virginia squad can't stop the pass at all. This is going to be, and with those two wide receivers, they're going to have a big, big day. I think West Virginia is going to run the football, but that's going to be it. And if that happens, you're right. Central Florida after that, Texas Tech, Kansas, Cincinnati before their final two against Utah and K-State. Well, Biz, you live in Eastern Iowa, so you don't have to deal with as many Cyclone fans as I do here in Central Iowa.
Well, hopefully I just provided you with the kiss of death right there. Yeah, everything I said, I believe. I think Iowa State wins big. I think they're possibly the best team in the Big 12. I think they're probably a playoff team, but God, I hope all that's wrong. Let's hope I jinxed them. So go Nears.
Well, Biz, you got to go paddleboard, so we're going to let you go. I got to go get ready for work. You haven't.
I have a question for you. Does the Des Moines schools do a fall break?
Some of them do, yes.
Our kids don't have school Friday, Monday, or Tuesday.
So Tara's actually off today. My wife. Yeah, Jack. Well, he doesn't go to school on Fridays. Ella has school, but they have a field trip today. But yeah, there's a couple of schools, including
we have
public.
We have a 5-day weekend for our kids. So it's supposed to be 90 today. So we're going to get out on the water and go out and celebrate global warming. So we should definitely be out on the water swimming in mid-October. That seems natural. So.
Yeah, a little bit different than growing up, isn't it? Well, with that, Biz, we're out of time. Have a great weekend. Unfortunately, I will not be in Kinnick Stadium this weekend as wife is working this weekend. Jack's got soccer. So 5-year-old soccer takes precedent over Iowa football.
Ella's not old enough to watch your kids yet. God,
we're getting close. We're getting close. We'll get there soon. Well,
back. Christ, if this was the early 80s and 07,
oh yeah,
we'd all be home. Good Lord, Trent.
We also would be playing soccer.
Tough, yeah, exactly. Toughen your kids up. You'll be fine. We'll see it. We'll see it, Kinnick.
All right, Vince. We'll talk to you later.
All right, go Hawks.